Hey there guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Rani Presents here on Hoodix Reviews. And in this week's episode I'm once again going to be continuing my series of reviewing Doctor Who Regeneration episodes from my Regenerations box set, and this week it is the turn of reviewing my most dreaded episode on this box set, Time in the Rani. And of course guys, I need your help desperately. I have a massive decision to make and I'm going to talk to you guys more about that after the review when I end this video, but until then, wish me luck. Roll titles. Right then, I'm actually upset that I actually have to do this. Time to review Time in the Rani, trying to sound as excited as possible, clearly. Yeah, I don't want to start swearing or anything, but I'm just going to warn you guys. This review could turn heavily into an endless rant with loads of swear words, a lot of anger, and it could go on for a long time because everything that I've been told about this story, I've been told it's boring, it's horrible, it's unbearable, and all them statements are wrong, because it's not horrible, it's not unbearable, it's not boring, because they are all understatements of the frickin' century. Time in the Rani is the biggest unmitigated piece of shit that I've ever watched. I'm actually in disbelief at how bad this was. It was so bad that I forgot it was the Seventh Doctor's first story, because I was so uncompelled by this story. My attention was elsewhere. I literally could not even keep my eyes on this story for more than 2 minutes, but without thinking, wow, what is this crap? So without any further ado, let's get some facts out of the way before I blow my top. Time in the Rani was written by two complete morons named Pip and Jane Baker. Yeah, they sound stupid, don't they? Directed by a guy called Andrew Morgan, who clearly didn't know how he could use a camera. And it was transmitted between the 7th and the 28th of September back in 1987. I feel deeply sympathetic for anyone who was around at that time. The synopsis is as follows, without me sounding extremely excited. I'm sorry. By the way guys, I'm sorry that while reading the synopsis if I get too excited, okay? The Rani has returned after her last encounter with the Doctor, with yet another malicious scientific scheme, like we've not seen that before, taking advantage of the post-regenerative trauma that the Doctor is suffering and going through. The Rani hopes to achieve control of an approaching asteroid composed entirely of strange matter. Can the Doctor figure out he is being used for the Rani's evil experiment, and what is behind the door that the Rani won't allow the Doctor past? How exciting does that sound? I am so excited by that plot that I might go and watch it again. Oh, like freaking hell. The plot itself is just bland and boring. I mean, at first glance, I would think that that plot was just hollow, transparent and dull. To me, that is not. If I was to see that in a TV guide, I wouldn't even give it a second glance. I wouldn't even think about it twice. I'd think, you know what, that sounds bad, I might give it a try, but without a shadow of a doubt, that just sounds like something we have seen before. It doesn't sound complex, it just sounds so two-dimensional and so linear, and that is exactly what this story is. So, now they were going through a few difficult times. These are a few things that were happening up until the running up to Time in the Rani. The BBC were at the time experimenting with the show. They changed the show's length. I think they changed the times and the days it was broadcast. They changed their narrative technique. Of course, they changed the lead actor by sacking Colin Baker, bless him. And the script editor had resigned before this episode, and whoever that script editor is, you dodged a freaking bullet, my friend. So, let's begin with this story. Of course, I can only start with the regeneration, which this was the first story what a regeneration was at the beginning of. And yeah, if you're a viewer on the channel, you'll have probably seen our Regenerations countdown and our thoughts on the 6th Doctor's regeneration. I say 6th Doctor with big massive bunny ears because he wasn't even present. It was actually Sylvester McCoy in the worst wig imaginable. I have never seen the most unrealistic regeneration ever. I've not seen... The thing with this episode is there was so little effort placed into it. Everyone who was present seemed like they didn't want to be there and that they didn't give two shits about the viewers or what they were doing. And that's the impression I got straight from the get-go. The regeneration was bad. The wig that Sylvester McCoy was wearing was the most unrealistic piece of crap I've ever seen. The special effects of the TARDIS crashing down to Earth were terrible because it landed like a freaking rainbow. They couldn't even afford to make the TARDIS freaking materialise, that's how bad it was. And the opening credits. Don't even get me started on the opening titles to this episode. The opening titles to the 7th Doctor's era. It looked like it had been done on paint. It was... The colours, the meteorites looked like bits of scrumpled up paper, and the logo. My god, the logo for the 7th Doctor was so horrifically bad. I freaking despise the opening credits. And straight, literally, as soon as them opening credits had ended, and we'd seen the regeneration scene, myself and James looked at each other and thought, we're going to need each other because this is going to be one difficult an hour and a half, and it was exactly that. It was difficult. It was incredibly unbearable. So, I've got the regeneration out of the way, unless it comes back to bite me on the arse. But, let's talk about the 7th Doctor's first moments. Now, they weren't bad. I mean, the 7th Doctor showed glimpses of previous Doctors, which I liked. You know, there were a few little callbacks in this episode which I appreciated and I credited. The 7th Doctor was very loopy at first, and of course he suffered from amnesia, which became a big part of the first 2 episodes. So yeah, showing previous post-regenerative effects was pretty good. And it made you understand that this is the same guy, this is still the Doctor for anyone who was in a bit of denial at the time, because obviously it was such a sudden change. It would have been very hard for the viewers to get used to, because there was no build-up to Colin Baker's regeneration, it just happened like that. But the acting at the beginning, and basically throughout, was just over the top. I felt like I was watching a theatre pantomime. I literally wanted to say to the Doctor, she's behind you. I want to go, boo, Rani, you suck. She's behind you, Doctor. Oh, no, she isn't. Literally, the acting was so over the top. It was almost as if the actors were trying too hard to be convincing, and in turn, that just made them look stupid. Every single one of them looked absolutely stupid. And like I said earlier on, the first 2 episodes was made up of the Doctor suffering from amnesia, and like I said in the synopsis, the Rani was using the Doctor's amnesia to basically believe everything she said. And she was using the Doctor and the things that she made him think to then obviously enhance her plots and enhance her motives and help her with whatever divisive plot she was trying to achieve, which were just generic and shit anyway. And what really annoyed me about this is that the Rani dressed up as Mel. Yeah, the Rani all of a sudden became the master of disguise. And it was the worst disguise ever. Yeah, she had the same exact clothing as Mel, which I don't even get, because where the hell did she get Mel's clothing from? Because Mel at the same time was going around the planet looking for the Doctor, still in her clothing. So how the hell did the Rani get the exact same clothes as Mel? And the makeup that the Rani was wearing looked like a tangerine teenager you'd see nowadays in the street, plastered with makeup and fake tan. I mean, if they're going to make the Rani pose as Mel to fool the Doctor, they at least need to make her look convincing. I don't understand. Even though the Doctor had amnesia, how did he not understand that that was the Rani? Her acting in itself was awful, but yet the Doctor was thick enough to think, oh yeah, that's clearly Mel and not the Rani. And yet when he saw Mel, he thought she was the Rani. They both dressed the same, they both looked the same, so how the hell could he tell the fricking difference? For the first 2 parts, the Rani was basically pretending to be Mel in the most unconvincing costume and makeup, and the voice was terrible. It was a waste of the first 2 episodes. From the get-go, I just knew that this story was going to be absolutely horrific. Next, what really annoyed me about this episode was the music. James did say that the music took him completely out of the episode, and I cannot agree more. The music sounded like something you'd hear from a pinball machine. It was horribly misused. Like something you'd hear in an elevator. That's what the music sounded like. It was like dun dun dun, dun 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 dun. And the really annoying thing was, this music was used over and over and over again. They used the same piece of music over and over again, and they didn't just overuse it, they misused it. They used this music in places and in scenes that wasn't even climactic. I mean, I know at times in the classic series, the Doctor would look at the camera and go, "We're in trouble," and it'd go, "Dun dun," and you'd be like, right, well, that wasn't climactic at all. But in this story, scenes that weren't even important, they used this music. Like, literally, Mel and this guy were walking down the side of a mountain, just casually walking. It was going dun 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 dun, and then they stopped and talked and the music stopped. They had like a 5-second conversation and the music went stop. And as soon as they stopped talking, it went dun 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 dun, and I was just like, really? Who the freaking hell was designing this music? Because it was not only overused, but it was misused in the worst freaking times. And yeah, honestly, this episode could have actually been even slightly intense and slightly suspenseful if the music was used in the right place. I just don't get how the music can go from such heights in the Caves of Androzani to sounding like it was a little kid with one of them toy xylophones going dun 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 in the story. It made no sense. There was just no logic. On top of the Sixth Doctor's regeneration being him falling off a fricking exercise bike and banging his head, give me fricking strength. Who's gonna die by banging their head from an exercise bike? Fuck off, writers, my god, that was the worst cause of death ever. And that was logically bad enough. But everything in this story, the scenes that were in it, there were some scenes which didn't even need to be there. Logic was flew out of the window during this story. The only good scene in this entire story was when the Seventh Doctor was choosing his costume. That was it. Because he tried on the Second Doctor's coat, one of the Third Doctor's suits, he wore the Fourth Doctor's, I think he wore the Fourth Doctor's second costume, you know, the red jacket and the red long scarf and everything, and he wore the Fifth Doctor's costume with the cricket bat and everything, and obviously at the start of the story he wore the Sixth Doctor. So we got a mouthful and an eyeful of each Doctor's costume pretty much, which was a nice callback. And it's probably the only scene that I've ever liked in this entire episode. The next thing that annoyed me was the prosthetics. Now, there was these monster things, I don't know what the hell they were, that were working for the Rani. Oh my god, and they looked like they'd been made by rubber. You know, I mean, the thing that really annoyed me, going back to the logic that was not even existing in this episode, no apparent logic whatsoever, is that the special effects, and I don't know if this was the BBC being tight asses or they weren't funding Doctor Who at the time, but the special effects and the prosthetics were worse during this episode than they have been in like the 4th and 5th Doctor's era, and that really annoyed me. The prosthetics were so uncompelling and they were so unbelievably bad that you looked at the monsters and thought, really? Am I supposed to be scared by you? Am I supposed to look at these monsters and think, oh my god, they're going to take Mel away? In fact, I just looked at them and thought, they look like giant rubber plush toys. They literally, if I was to have seen them monsters, I wouldn't have ran away and screamed. I would probably have wanted to squeeze their nose to see if it made a noise like a clown. I wanted to squeeze their nose and go, just to see if they were actually clowns. It was the most pathetic costume I've ever seen. The eyes were moving around on their own and wobbling. You know, I mean, at times the classic costumes were bad, but this was on another scale of bad. And another thing that annoyed me, and this wasn't really the classic in this episode's fault. The Doctor pointed out that he was 953 in this story. Fast forward to the modern series, and he's like 903. Yeah, just putting that out there, that's like the biggest plot hole in Doctor Who history. But the worst thing about this episode, bar the music and the acting, is that it was just very hard to watch. At the end of episode 2, we were struggling to stay intact with the story. We were yawning, we were trying our absolute hardest to care about what was going on, because the story literally did not progress from at the end of episode 1 all the way up to the start of episode 4. It literally consisted of the Rani trying to capture the Doctor to put him in this chamber to help him and his knowledge of time. He was basically trying to trap him in this chamber so she could capture his mind and his knowledge of time, feed it to this brain, which would then somehow help her blow up this asteroid. You know, that was literally all it was. They were going around in circles, doing exactly the same thing, and the story did not progress at all for like 3/4 of it, probably. It was going round in circles, and it became predictable. That's how bad it was. You knew what was going to happen next. You did not care for what was happening at all. And there were some fight scenes in the story which the choreography was so bad. Like at one point the Doctor tripped this guy over with his umbrella, and he literally fell over, made himself comfy on the floor, and then pretended that he was knocked out. And then afterwards said that he hit his head when he clearly didn't hit his head. He put his arm in the way so he landed nicely. The acting was bad. The choreography was even freaking worse. I wanted to turn this story off after episode 3. It was actually unbearable. If it wasn't for me reviewing this, I would have turned it off. So I put myself through an extra 30 minutes of boring, unbearable torture for you guys. I hope you're freaking grateful. And then, to make it even worse, in the final part, the Rani's motives magically changed. She went from wanting to use the knowledge of she wanted to use the knowledge of world-famous people that she'd captured to blow up this supernova. But then her motives magically changed in part 4, which obviously gave me the hint that the writers made this up as they went along. These writers, and I don't know if they're written for Doctor Who again, I hope they didn't. They clearly didn't have a clue what they were doing. They'd started a story and they didn't even end it. You know, the story had so many pointless scenes, and at some points I actually laughed in frustration. I wanted to cry. Ask James. Ask James. I was sat banging my head off my laptop because it was laughable. That's how bad it was. I could not believe what I was watching. And the ending would have been slightly, and I mean ever so slightly, climactic and intense, but the acting and the music just let it down. The ending was basically exactly like the rest of the story. I didn't care about it. I was not on the edge of my seat wondering if the Doctor was going to save the day. I did not care. I had no vested interest in this episode whatsoever. I just wanted it to end, in all honesty. Oh my god, right. I think I've gone through everything, and I've written a very, very long conclusion, so I'm going to conclude Time and the Rani now. Jesus Christ, this is longer than I thought. Here we go. Time and the Rani was the most frustrating, unbearable, horrific Doctor Who story that I have ever watched. It started with the worst Doctor death and the worst regeneration ever, as it seemed sudden, anticlimactic, and the wig was disgraceful. The plot was bland, hollow, and boring. It seemed as if the writers were making the story up as they went along. The acting from near enough all involved was over the top and woeful, and at times I felt like I was watching a pantomime in a theatre. The Rani is one of the most boring panto-esque villains I've ever seen. Every time the Rani appeared, my attention in the story left completely. I did not care for this character at all, or for her simple generic motives. The prosthetics and the special effects looked like they had been done by school children, and the opening titles and the new logo were an eyesore. The worst part of this story, more than anything, was the elevator-like music. It took any suspense and intensity out of the story, and was misused at the wrong moments and overused in moments that weren't even important. At least 3/4 of the story had no progression whatsoever, and consisted of filler scenes, basically going round in circles that had no effect at all. Myself and James found it incredibly hard to keep intact with the episodes, and if it wasn't for reviewing this, I would have turned it off after episode 3. My only credit is to Sylvester McCoy, who in this very difficult position was giving his best in this story, but no actor on this planet could have saved this horribly written piece of shit. Time and the Rani is without a doubt the worst Doctor Who episode that I've ever seen to date. It makes Love and Monsters look like the waters of Mars. I would only recommend this story to anyone who is drunk, high on drugs, half dead, or just plain stupid. You can waste your money on this horrible experience just to see how bad it is yourself, but I wouldn't recommend this to my worst enemy. A story that I would never watch again, even if you paid me £1 million to. All this considered, my only credit is to Sylvester McCoy and the fact that this was his first story and he was in a very, very difficult position and he did put his all into this story. So crediting McCoy's effort, I will be slightly generous and give Time and the Rani a 2 out of 10. Yes, it was going to be a 1 out of 10, but if it wasn't for McCoy's effort, it would have been a 1 out of 10. So yes, it is the lowest review that we have gave on this channel to date. Time and the Rani. The worst piece of shit I've ever watched. 2 out of 10. Before I begin ranting again, let's answer some comments from a better episode, in fact one of the best episodes, the Caves of Androzani review last week. Thank God that's over with. This is my favourite regeneration story, and my favourite Doctor Who story. Oh, that's a bold statement. You know, there's been quite a mixed bag of opinions in the comment section, which I didn't expect, but I love it when people have a good debate in the comments. It's always nice to see. It shows that your video has created a bit of a debate. But to say it's your favourite regeneration story and your favourite Doctor Who story ever, that's a pretty brave statement. I've not really put my money down on what is my favourite Doctor Who story ever, because for one, I don't think I can judge what my favourite story ever is, because I've not seen every single story. Hopefully one day I will have seen every single story. So to say that, it's a very bold statement, and I'd like you to comment in the section below of this video, even though it's the time in the Rani review, tell me why you think The Caves is your favourite episode of all time. It'd be very interesting to see your opinion.
Great review. I've met Graham Harper too.
Graham Harper is an absolutely fantastic guy. We were really lucky because when we went to the Regenerations convention, it wasn't just like Graham Harper was sat there and there was a massive line of people. You know, you had to line up, and once you got to the front, you know, you said, "Oh, hello Graham, how are you?" And you had like a 2-minute conversation. He signed something and he was like, "Right, next." You know, you didn't spend 20 quid to have a 2-second conversation. He was just in a crowd of people. There was Daleks, there was classic Cybermen, everything, you know, really. It was just a fantastic convention, and me and James, we got to literally just stand there for a good 5 to 10 minutes, just, you know, we shook his hand and we just had a nice conversation with him. We spoke to him about what it was like to work in the classic era, what it was like to work with people like David Tennant, and I remember him actually mentioning what it was like to be on set of the Series 4 finale, which he did direct, which is one of my favourite finales, apart from the ending, which I'm going to get to later on in the series, actually. But nevertheless, Graham Harper is a fantastic guy. He is probably, I think he's the only guy to have directed in the classic and the modern series, but no matter when he directed, he's definitely up there with some of the best directors, and you could tell in the Caves of Androzani that the direction was top-notch. And Graham Harper's direction is probably the reason why, well, one of the reasons why this episode is so highly regarded. It just had a different feel and a different atmosphere, and that was of course due to the music, due to the acting. But I think one of the reasons that this story is up there with the best is definitely part of that is due to Graham Harper's wonderful direction.
Brilliant review of one of the best stories. However, I would disagree that this was the last great classic story. The criminally underrated Sixth Doctor had some brilliant stories. Attack of the Cybermen, Vengeance on Varos, Revelation of the Daleks, and Seven had Remembrance and Fenric. But yes, I agree, The Caves is stone cold classic. Interested to see your time in the Rani review. Not nearly as bad as its reputation suggests, it's infinitely better than the god-awful Paradise Towers.
I get what you mean. When I said that, I did say in the review that it was the last good story before Doctor Who went downhill. I did say that, but I just meant that as in a way of saying it was the last episode of the Great Era. You know, after that, the era just went down slope, and there was a lot more inconsistency in Doctor Who throughout the 6th and 7th Doctor's era. Talking of the 6th Doctor episodes that you brought up, I've recently just purchased Vengeance and Varos, and it's due to come tomorrow morning, so I will definitely review that in the future. And I've also got Remembrance of the Daleks up there as well, so they're 2 episodes that could possibly flip my opinion on the 6th and the 7th Doctor's era, and I will definitely review them in the future. When I said that it was the last good story before Doctor Who went downhill, I didn't mean every single episode, but yeah, it was the last good episode in the height that Doctor Who was in, and that era. Of course, as soon as the 6th Doctor entered the room, sadly, Doctor Who just went downhill from there.
Honestly, I don't understand why this story is so highly regarded. In my opinion, of course, this is not the best Doctor Who story ever. It is not the best regeneration story ever. However, it is a great story, just not the best.
Well, that's a very interesting opinion. I mean, I don't think that it is the greatest story ever in Doctor Who history, but it's definitely up there with the best, especially in the classic era, and it's definitely up there with some of the greatest regeneration episodes. I mean, I'm not going to discuss what my favourite regeneration episode is and my least favourite, because after this series is done, I'm going to do an overall countdown from my least to my favourite. But I definitely do think it's up there with the best. I just wish you'd have commented on why you don't think it's as highly regarded, but I'm not saying it is the best Doctor Who story ever, but without a shadow of a doubt, it just had something different, and it had a different feel, and it had a different atmosphere to all the other classic stories that I'd seen previous, and everything just seemed like it was one step higher than everything I'd seen previous. So definitely not the best story ever. I don't even know what the best story ever is really, but it's definitely up there. So then guys, thank you for watching this week's episode of Matthew Rani Presents. Don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to our channel, and please do comment below your thoughts and opinions on Time in the Rani. Give me your own little mini review and your rating out of 10 in the comment section below, and of course I will read them out at the end of next week's video. Of course guys, your continued loyal support on the channel is phenomenal. We cannot be more grateful, and I cannot wait to read these comments out next week. I'm really looking forward to hear what you guys think on Time in the Rani. It's going to be one entertaining read. So nevertheless guys, if you want to stay up to date on what's happening on the channel, go to the website that's at the bottom of your screen. There you will find a link to our Facebook page and any news on the channel, and if you drop a like on our Facebook page, which will be much appreciated guys, it's the perfect way for you to stay up to date on everything that happens on Who Addicts Reviews. So now I've got the usual out of the way guys, I need your help with a decision that I need to make in order for the continuation of my Regeneration reviewing series. For anyone who's just tuned in, I've been reviewing episodes from my Regenerations box set, and I've reviewed every single episode up until now. And the next episode on the Regenerations box set and in the Regeneration series of Doctor Who in general is the Doctor Who TV movie. And any loyal subscribers who have been subscribed to this channel since about July, August last year, you guys will know that the first ever review myself and James did on the channel was the Doctor Who TV movie. And if you have not checked that out, or if you want to check out any reviews that we've done before, including my Regeneration reviews, then there is a Doctor Who reviews playlist on our YouTube homepage. But the decision is this guys, should I re-review the TV movie next week and kind of keep my Regeneration reviewing series whole, even though me and James have reviewed it already? Would you rather me do an updated review next week in the same format I've been doing recently to keep this Regeneration series whole and keep it complete, or would you rather just go and check the review myself and Jamie did yourselves a couple of months ago? So you can either check that review we did before out yourselves, or I could re-review it for you guys next week. So comment below if you think I should re-review it, or comment below if you think I should just skip the TV movie and move on to the next Doctor Who episode in the Regeneration series. And of course the next Regeneration after the Doctor Who TV movie is The Night of the Doctor, which I would be privileged to review. So next week it's either the TV movie, if you want me to re-review it, or The Night of the Doctor. So please, please, please comment below what you think I should do next week. It'd be much, much appreciated, guys. So I've rambled on long enough, guys. Thank you for watching this video. Of course, please comment below. Help me decide what to do next week. And until next time, guys, have a good weekend. Take care, and I'll see you later.